Namaste, Mulugu and namaste all the audience gathered here. Thank you for coming. I welcome all of you to the study circle organized by SAILC at Aurobindo University. And the discourse which is happening, though recorded talks are available, which we will be uploading on our website. But your visibility here motivates us a lot. So I just request Mulugu to go forward, and I welcome all the audience who are joining us. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, please. Mulugu.
Thank you, Kiranji. So, at the moment, we are studying Sri Aurobindo's the book, The Mother. This book brings together many of the key teachings of integral yoga, and this book itself outlines the key themes of Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Karma Yoga, and Yoga of Self-Perfection, which also Sri Aurobindo had written about in the Synthesis of Yoga, one of his key works. This book was originally released in 1928. The first few chapters of this book cover various themes, primarily relating to the attitude of the sadhak, the psychological development of the spiritual seeker, and also allied themes that are relevant to the sadhana and particularly relevant to those of us who are not in the ashram itself, but are living outside in the world, pursuing our careers, family lives, and so on. In the third chapter, Sri Aurobindo writes about faith, sincerity, and surrender. We started this chapter in the previous class, and then we will take it forward from there. So, where are we in the third chapter? I will just read out the specific portion where we stopped. In the second half of the first paragraph of chapter 3, Sri Aurobindo says, regard your life as given you only for the divine work and to help in the divine manifestation. There is a question that comes up, and we addressed it partly last time. How can I regard my life as being given for divine work? I am not somebody who is exclusively pursuing spirituality sitting in an ashram. How can I say my life is given for divine work? The line of Ishavasya Upanishad we discussed last time was that Ishavasyam idam sarvam. Everything here is for the manifestation of the Lord. In the path of integral yoga, there is no distinction between mundane life and spiritual life. There is no separation. Every action we do is a part of the divine movement in this universe. We all are a part of the divine movements in the universe. Our life in its integrality is unfolding of the divine in this world. Yes, your life and my life is a part of the divine unfolding himself in this world. In Aurobindo University, now we have Sri Aurobindo Integral Life Center. Life in all its integrality is the manifestation of the divine. That is the inherent truth. So no matter what we do, it is a part of the divine unfolding. In Upanishads, there is a story of how there is a monk seeking an enlightened soul, and he is directed to go and see such and such a person in so and so village. So he goes to that village. Here is this monk, probably with a tuft on the back of his head, trying to find a teacher. And the villagers say, why do you need him? You look like a Swami. He says, no, somebody asked me to see him. So they say, okay, he stays outside the village, you go there. And when this young monk goes there, he sees a butcher at work, actually slaughtering and taking meat out. And he says, so-and-so asked me to come and see you. Can you help me find the truth? And then the butcher gives him the ultimate knowledge. This is how we accept every aspect of our life as a manifestation of the divine. We have another case in the case of Pandurang, which many Maharashtrians know well. Lord Krishna comes to the devotee and says, you called me, I have come. And the devotee says, well, I am serving my father right now. You stand there for some time and throws him a brick. So for us, we don't separate life. All is an unfoldment of the divine, and that is the attitude with which we have to regard our life as given to us only for the divine work and to help in the divine manifestation. And Sri Aurobindo goes on to say, desire nothing but purity, force, light, wideness, calm, ananda of the divine consciousness. In the realization of the divine impersonal, these vibrations are the manifestation of the divine. Purity, force, light, wideness, calm, ananda of the divine consciousness. What is purity? Purity is to exclusively accept the divine impulse and reject any movement that comes to us that does not have the divine truth inside it. Knowingly, consciously, avoiding anything that seems to be in the gray area would be a great beginning towards purity. We should remember that these teachings are not those lofty teachings that can be forgotten when we face office politics, when we face property problems within our siblings, when we face corruption. All these have to be melded and welded back into our life. Sri Aurobindo says, an unpurified heart. Now look at purity in so many ways, so many facets of purity he brings in. An unpurified heart, an unpurified sense, an unpurified life confuse the understanding, disturb its data, distort its conclusions, darken its seeing, misapply the knowledge. An unpurified physical system clogs and chokes up its action. There must be integral purity. It is purified understanding that in the man is the most potent cleanser of his turbid and disordered being, and most sovereignly imposes their right working on its members. So Sri Aurobindo talks about purity in the emotions, purity in the senses, purity in the vital movements of life. Many of us carry impulses from our past. Many of us carry so many things: fear, doubt, desire, ego. All of these have to be purified, and they have to be purified steadily, slowly. Many people confuse that probably the asceticism is not a part of Sri Aurobindo's path. Inner asceticism is a part of Sri Aurobindo's path. Sri Aurobindo says, self-denial is a mighty instrument for purification. We have an impulse, thrust to indulge in a desire. There is an instinct, there is a habitual movement that has been with us for a long time. Denying it, an ascetic denial there, is a part of purification. A disciple writes, when I called down the purity from above, the whole being was filled with peace and purity, and I felt Mother's presence in the heart. So for us, the approach of developing purity is reflected in the statement of this sadhak. We see again and again in Sri Aurobindo's writings that he says many elements of higher consciousness are right above our head, purity being one of them. Purity, silence, peace, knowledge, power, light, ananda. These are all to be called down from the higher ranges of consciousness, a couple of inches above the top of the head, into our being steadily. These are methods of meditation that can be very powerful. Sri Aurobindo says that there is white light that descends, and peace and purity often come together. He says light, peace, force, ananda constitute the spiritual consciousness. It is above the head that there is perpetually the divine peace, force, light, knowledge, ananda. These begin to descend into the body when the personal consciousness is prepared sufficiently. So sometimes when we conduct these meditations, many say, oh, we are not feeling anything coming down. Our thoughts are still active. It takes time. As the inner, lower being of the mental vital gets purified, slowly the higher consciousness descends. If one is ready with many years of sadhana or many lives of earlier sadhana, it may happen within days. If certain purification is going on, it may happen in a few months. Or sometimes it may not happen in the active meditation, but you may feel the vibrations in sleep because the mind is less active. So there are many ways in which one can call for this descent and experience the descent. And these are the forces that when they descend, not only do you feel them, they begin the transformation of the nature. So all of these are steps towards the grand goal of transformation, the aim of our endeavor, as Sri Aurobindo declared in the first chapter. Going further in this paragraph, ask for nothing but the divine, spiritual, and supramental truth, its realization on earth and in you, and in all who are called and chosen, and the conditions needed for its creation and its victory over all opposing forces. So again, somebody asked the question, Mother, this is a very big thing we are asking. We want supramental truth to be realized in us. What should we do? And the mother basically points out that faith, sincerity, and surrender. Sri Aurobindo has said it in these chapters. These are the conditions. For us who are working, a good beginning towards the grander goal of yoga is to work towards a gradual silent mind and an awakening of the touch of the psychic. Both of these can be very, very important first steps. The clamor of the mind being silenced, and the emotions and the doors that are closed at the emotional heart opening and letting us to get the rays of psychic out from the hidden chamber inside. Going further in the next paragraph, this is the second paragraph of chapter 3. Let your sincerity and surrender be genuine and entire. When you give yourself, give completely, without demand, without condition, without reservation, so that all in you shall belong to the Divine Mother, and nothing be left to the ego or to any other power. We have been discussing the planes and parts of the being. In the earlier discussions, earlier talks, we talked about how Sri Aurobindo looks at three parts of the being very closely in all his writings: the physical, the emotional and the energy sheath, what he calls the vital, and then the mental, the restless thoughts, and a lot of the other mental capabilities. Now, when we talk of sincerity and surrender, the surrender must be of all layers and parts of the being. We live in a world of compartmentalization, consciously or unconsciously. Sometimes we kind of leave the higher truths as good goals to reach, but probably not right now, because the world is not ready for it and I am not ready for it. These are the inner barriers and inner conditionings Sri Aurobindo is enjoining us to break. The compartmentalization needs to go. Somewhere Sri Aurobindo says surrender is the beginning and the surrender is the end or the completion of integral yoga. And when we say our surrender must be genuine and entire, layer by layer, consecration is the right word for detailed, meticulous surrender. Somewhere there is a fear inside. We need to let go of that fear. Somewhere there's a behavioral pattern that is habituated. These have to be let go layer by layer. All our planes and parts have to be offered to the divine. As a friend of mine once said, I may have mentioned, he says, Mahatmas are those whose manasa, vacha, karma, their words, their feelings, and their actions, they're all aligned uniformly to a single purpose. That is the necessity for any spiritual seeker. We do not have the luxury of playing games. We do not have the luxury of hiding parts of truth, communicating, partially communicating. No. First, we should have complete honesty with ourselves, and then we must have complete honesty with the divine, and then we must have complete honesty and transparency with those around us who to us should represent the divine. Moving further, the more complete your faith, sincerity and surrender, the more will grace and protection be with you. This paragraph is one of the most powerful paragraphs in this entire book. And many sadhaks and seekers and devotees read this paragraph again and again in times of difficulty. I will read it again. Please do pay attention. And if you want, you can mark this paragraph. The more complete your faith, sincerity, and surrender, the more will grace and protection be with you. And when the grace and protection of the Divine Mother are with you, what is there that can touch you, or whom need you fear? A little of it even will carry you through all difficulties, obstacles, and dangers. Surrounded by its full presence, you can go securely on your way because it is hers, careless of all menace, unaffected by any hostility, however powerful, whether from this world or from the world's invisible. Very, very powerful. When the grace and protection of the Divine Mother are with you, what is there that can touch you, or whom need you fear? So powerful. Nalinikanta Gupta ji says, if you cover yourself with the cloak of light, the light of happy, sincere surrender and aspiration, that is a wonderful filter that gives you automatic protection. The surrender itself becomes and activates a cloak of Mother's protection, a cloak of white light around us. So powerful, so beautiful, yet so simple. Mother says, from the moment you are surrounded by the divine grace and are in a fit state to receive the divine grace, your way and hers have become one and the same. As we surrender, as we open ourselves more and more to divine grace, we become a part of the divine unfolding in this universe. Your way and hers have become one and the same. What a beautiful, wonderful condition for any of us to be in. And what is asked of us? A happy and sincere surrender of the smallest movement. Mother and Sri Aurobindo have simplified spiritual life to a very significant degree. A very significant degree. There are personal attacks of the hostile forces, but also sometimes there are beings in the atmosphere that try to interfere with our spiritual progress if we try to take on to the spiritual path. It is a common experience among many spiritual seekers. If you take a resolution not to tell a lie, for example, that very evening you get a phone call that may make you kind of corner you to lie or put you under pressure where you are probably tempted to lie. Such situations can be extrapolated. You don't want to do something, something will corner you to see if doing it is an easier path. These are things where we have to build willpower. And when hostile beings play this, they are basically testing our resolve, and they have been appointed by the divine to do this work. Sentinels, Mother calls them. There is a reference to the invisible worlds. In this sentence, Sri Aurobindo says, unaffected by any hostility, however powerful, whether from this world or from the worlds invisible. So the Mother elaborated on what are these invisible worlds. She talks about how there are, in the inner states we have corresponding to physical, vital, and mental. The Mother says there is a physical world, similarly there is a vital world and mental world and many other spiritual worlds also, as one goes closer to the divine. So sometimes these forces from other parts can intercede or interfere. Or looked at it differently, whether from this world or worlds invisible could also refer to maybe, let us say, something like astrology. There could be a certain movements of planets which can be inimical. But as we surrender more and more to the divine, all these vibrations are diluted. The truth of the matter is, even if I digress for a moment, it is something important I can share with you. In the absence of us invoking the divine grace, the forces that dictate our destiny could be related to our past karma, our past actions, our family karma, and the configuration associated with the karmas of our immediate family, or sometimes our extended family a few generations before. Astrologically, the time of our birth and the movement of planets today that impacts us positively or negatively. Even forces of Vastu, where the place you stay, if you have a certain negative configurations in that place, the door not being in the right place or the lavatories being in the wrong place, things of that nature. These are the forces that normally influence or cast a certain shadow on a person's life. In the absence of all other forces, they divert and dictate the outcome. Some less, some more, some high, some weak, some strong. But once we invoke the divine light, what we are doing is we are putting the light of the spiritual sun on the candle of a karma light. The spiritual sun will cast such a bright light that all these others will just pale away in comparison. So from the other worlds or worlds invisible or the forces that are in the terrestrial atmosphere, all of those are diluted. So particularly, invoking spiritual force on a regular basis is a healthy idea, is a happy opportunity for us to connect to the divine. And if one is going through critical times, such as a job change, a child's marriage, or a particularly difficult health condition, it is very, very helpful if one invokes consciously and continuously the Mother's grace and presence. It just wipes away many of these other influences and just does what is the best for our soul's journey. Whatever is the best for our spiritual evolution, Mother's force will work on making that destiny unfold. Going further, Sri Aurobindo says, its touch can turn difficulties into opportunities, failure into success, weakness into unfaltering strength. For the grace of the Divine Mother is the sanction of the Supreme, and now or tomorrow its effect is sure, a thing decreed, inevitable, and irresistible. Its touch can turn difficulties into opportunities, failure into success, weakness into unfaltering strength. After all, this is the grace of the Supreme Mother. One is reminded of the Gita shloka from chapter 6. Mukam karoti vachalam, langum pangayate girim. The dumb starts to be eloquent and the limp starts to run. All of this, everything changes when the grace of the divine is with us. Everything really works out for our highest spiritual good. And even if there are difficulties, one does not need to mind them as long as we are aware that we are invoking the divine presence, not doing things hiding from the Mother's consciousness, trying to invoke her presence. Sri Aurobindo says, be sure the Mother will be always with you to carry you upon the path. Difficulties come and difficulties go, but she being with you, the victory is sure. Keep yourself quiet and calm and face the difficulties with courage, as a sadhak must when seeking the divine. So this is how Sri Aurobindo talks about the grace of the Divine Mother and how faith, sincerity, and surrender are the three attributes that we speak about in sadhana, and how these can help us evolve in our spiritual life. That concludes chapter 3 of the book. Now we will proceed to chapter 4. Chapter about money. factor that seems to have mesmerized and hypnotized entire humanity. Wherever we see, whomever we talk to, they seem to be compelled to earn a living, and some of them consider themselves condemned to earn a living. Some of them thrive in the career and feel so much pride in what they're accomplishing and how much they're earning. So much so that mother in her early years looked around the world much before she met Sri Aurobindo. And she said, I wish to create a place where the need to earn a living is taken away from humanity, so that they can evolve spiritually and they can focus on spiritual progress. And later that dream was realized. As many of you know, that dream manifested as Aurobindo. Let us stop for a moment and ask ourselves, if I do not need the money, would I do the job I'm doing or engage myself in the profession that I'm engaging? Or even better, what would I rather do? This is a question we ask many youth when we work with them. We also ask when we do management workshops to the people sitting in front of us. This is one question we ask. The other question we ask is, how much do you need so that you don't have to earn a living? So we tell them, write down a number, and they take a piece of paper, they write down a number. And then we tell them, let us say miraculously, I give you a check for that number today. A demand draft, not even a check, if you doubt me. Then the question is, what would you be doing a week from today? Today, when we look around, many of us are lost in the endless pursuit of money. Our needs only seem to multiply faster than our capacity to earn. Most of the people of my generation in India have been very fortunate. We were riding an economy of the last 25 years, which was a rising tide that lifted all boats, and almost without exception, all of us are doing much better than we had ever planned at the beginning of our career or even 15 years ago. Yet, today I find a majority of my peers extremely worried about the next paycheck and what would happen, God forbid, as we enter 50s, if we lose our jobs where nobody wants to hire a 50+ person, and how they're petrified and paranoid and wake up with sweaty palms in the middle of the night. This in a generation which has really benefited. Look around you and you will probably see the same thing as to anyone who says, I have enough money, I don't need to do anything anymore, I'll just focus on something else. Or how many say, I'm very contented with what I have? Very, very few. As one of my friends says, tan man dhan. 3/4 of the adult life, tan or man ko sacrifice karke dhan kamate hain. The rest of the life, dhan ko spend karke tan aur man ko khade karne ki koshish karte hain. You lose your mind and body in earning the money for the first half or 2/3 of your adult life. And then you lose the body and the mind towards the last part of the life, and then you spend money to regain the health. This is the story of most of us, and it's a good opportunity to think and rethink about the purpose and role of money in our life. This chapter covers 4 topics. Sri Aurobindo explains what is the spiritual and occult truth of money, number 1. Number 2, what is the right attitude towards money for a spiritual seeker? Number 3, how to work for the divine with regard to money. If you are associated with a spiritual organization, how does one handle money? How does one raise money? And 4th, what is the role of money in an ideal divinized world or a supramentalized world? One of the things that many of us believe is that money brings us happiness. Even though philosophically we all say, no, our actions don't seem to reflect that we are manifesting that philosophy. Mother says, it is not money that makes man happy, but rather an inner balance of energy, good health, and good feelings. Let us remember these 3 carefully. Energy, good health, and good feelings. This is what makes a man happy. When we do workshops on integral living, we all find, and all the audience also agree, that when men or women reach the fag end of their life beyond 60, all of them want peace of mind, happiness. But there is a momentum of 60 years behind. And that momentum makes it difficult to settle the mind, to quieten the mind, to tear through the veil of emotions and reach the psychic being, experience the silenced mind, the fears. All of these are already clogging the system. And now suddenly, if we want peace of mind and happiness, it is an uphill task. So for those of us who are younger, it is a good opportunity to remember this and cultivate this inner balance of energy, good health, and good feelings. Then Mother goes on to talk about money itself. Money is a universal force meant to do the work on earth and the work needed to prepare earth to receive the divine forces. This is a sentence that is packed with many things that are going to unfold in the coming sentences and paragraphs. First, money is a universal force. And what is its purpose? It is to prepare the earth to receive the divine forces. It is a universal force that is meant to prepare the earth to receive the divine forces. We will open up this sentence and phrases over a period of time. Broadly, what we need to know is that the path of Sri Aurobindo and the path of integral yoga does not reject money. It does not embrace asceticism and poverty. Money is accepted as a universal force that is needed for both personal living as well as for the divine work. So this is the background, and now we begin. Sri Aurobindo says, money is the visible sign of a universal force, and this force, in its manifestation on earth, works on the vital and physical planes and is indispensable to the fullness of the outer life. In its origin and its true action, it belongs to the divine. First, let us understand this word that is repeating itself, universal force. What are the universal forces that we are familiar with? We all know that Sanatana Dharma talks of Panchabhutas. Prithvi, Apas, Agni, Vayu, Akasha. Earth, Apas is waters. Vayu, wind, breeze. Akasha, and of course fire, Agni. These are the known universal forces, and Mother is somewhere comparing, Mother and Sri Aurobindo are pointing out that wealth and money is one such universal force. This is the context we need to understand money in. It is a universal force. Unfortunately, men in their ego are trying to grab. This is my water, this is my fire. We don't say that, but this is my money, we definitely say that. When somebody tries to put their hand in our pocket and grab it figuratively, we get aggravated, we fight, we put up our defenses. Mother goes on to say, wealth is a force of nature. It should be a means of circulation, a power in movement. This is again a very important imagery we need to understand. It should be a means of circulation, a power in movement, as flowing water is a power in movement. It is something which can serve to produce, to organize. It is a convenient means because, in fact, it is only a means of making things circulate fully and freely. Just look at how Mother is talking about money and wealth. It is a force of nature, and just as water that is flowing gathers power, money in circulation is meant to gather more power and manifest in this world. Money belongs to no one. It is a collective property, and only those with an integral and general universal vision must use it. So she has given us many different ways of looking at money. First, that it is a universal force. Second, it is nobody's personal possession. Third, it is not meant to be accumulated. It is meant to be circulated. And as it is circulated, it gathers more power. In this chapter, we learn many beautiful and interesting new themes. And if we can really open ourselves and receive this knowledge, it can change the way we look at money, not only now, but for the rest of our life. MP Panditji says, money is a force. It represents a force which commands certain things in the material world. This force can be seized and utilized for good or evil, but by itself, money is neither good nor bad. It depends upon the use to which we put it, the spirit in which we use it. This is the right assessment of money, the spirit in which we use it. We'll come back to this. Further says, the true method of being in the stream of this money power is precisely what is written here, a sense of absolute impersonality. My dear friends, all of you are here because you are spiritual seekers. You're all here because we want to arrive at a higher state of consciousness in this life and in the lives to come. One phrase that is good for all of us to by heart is absolute impersonality. The minute we think of money, let us think of this phrase, absolute impersonality. The vitiation of vital attachment to money translates into personal attachment to money. Let us invoke the divine grace in realizing in our life, in this life, absolute impersonality with regard to our life, our wealth, our possessions. Translate to a sense of absolute impersonality, the feeling that it is not something you possess or which belongs to you, but that it is a force you can handle and direct where it ought to go in order to do the most useful work. It is not my money. It is not my possession. It is not I who decide where I spend it or use it. It is not I who use it to provide me security or pleasure or comfort. Impersonality means it is a force you can handle. We look at money the way we look at air we breathe. We don't say this is my air. We don't say this is my water. Impersonality exists for us in the Panchabhutas. We have to bring it into money also. In the earlier sentence, there is the last sentence is, in its origin and its true action, it belongs to the divine. Of course, before that, Sri Aurobindo says, in its manifestation on earth, it works on the vital and physical planes. Let us be very careful to understand this. Money is currency. Currency is physical. So we think money is a transactional aspect at the physical reality level. But Sri Aurobindo points out that it is also something that works on vital plane. Why? Let us examine ourselves or examine the people around us. What is the strong emotion you get from people when they feel they are being cheated? It is a very lower vital kind of emotion that is elicited. When we spend more money than we had planned to, a strong negative emotion. When we unexpectedly get a windfall, there is a high, there is a joy. That also is a vital vibration. Unexpected wealth coming to us brings us a certain elation. It also, in some cases and many cases, there are, particularly in the sports industry in America, you will see people who have become billionaires or at least millionaires in dollars overnight, and within a few years have squandered it so badly that they become poverty-ridden, all within a span of 15 years. Because there is a vital possession of money, there is a vital agitation that comes in, a sense of grandeur, a sense of inappropriate entitlement, and all of that also leads to excessive indulgence and eventual collapse. All of these belong to the vital plane. Any number of examples you can quote. In India, we don't see that excessiveness, yes. In IPL cricket in particular, many young boys have become crorpatis overnight, but very few stories are where they have lost their head, and that of course has a sociological aspect of the fact that still the family unit is strong and there is a saner head that prevails and all of that is there. But still, let us remember that money operates at the physical and vital planes. And there is a question that was asked here. When the sentence came, in its origin and its true action, it belongs to the divine. A child asked, sweet mother, it is men who have created money. Then how is it a divine power? How does it belong to the divine? Why does Sri Aurobindo say it belongs to the divine? The mother has a very beautiful explanation which is illustrative to all of us. She says, the whole creation is made externally by external things, but behind that there are divine forces. Behind many external things are divine forces. What men have invented, paper, coins, and other objects, all these are but means of expression, nothing else. But that, I just said this a moment ago, it is not the force itself, it is the material expression as men have created it. So she's saying the currency notes, etc., they are only a material expression of the force, the divine force. But this is purely conventional. What is behind is the force I am speaking about. You see, so it manifests in all sorts of ways. There is a very long conversation that goes on, and there are examples given how something like prehistoric men, their currency when they were living on seashores was seashells. The rarer the shell was, the greater the value. So at that time, seashell was representative of currency for those who were living around the sea. After metallurgical inventions, copper became a certain standard for currency. Much later, of course, gold became the standard for currency. So these are all physical expressions of the power of wealth, which is of a higher order, and it belongs to the divine. So, I'm tempted to move further, but given that, okay, we have 7 more minutes, we can perhaps move to the next paragraph or the next portion. The next sentence, yes. Same paragraph, opening paragraph. But like other powers of the divine, it is delegated here, and in ignorance of the lower nature can be usurped for the uses of the ego or held by asuric influences and perverted in its purpose. Now, I will just refer to the phrase, like other powers of the divine designated here. What other powers is Sri Aurobindo referring to? The mother explains elsewhere that in the creation, 4 powers were sent down by the divine originally. Light, love and ananda, truth and life. These 4 powers came down at the origin of creation. Light, love and ananda, truth and life. They came down. But as they came down over a period of time, they separated from their divine origin and were perverted, somewhat like the way we see money is perverted. Light became darkness and inconscient. Love and ananda became hatred and suffering. Truth became falsehood. Life became death. So there are powers that came down but were separated from the divine and then lost their sense of purpose, their pristine forms, and were distorted. Similarly, in the lower nature, money power also has been distorted. It can be usurped for the uses of the ego. Usurped means grabbed, taken over. For the uses of the ego or held by asuric influences and perverted to their purpose. This is one of the 3 forces, power, wealth, sex, that have the strongest attraction for the human ego and the asura, and are most generally misheld and misused by those who retain them. So in this section, Sri Aurobindo is further elaborating the spiritual and occult forces that are at work. In the earlier discussions, we saw how there are forces that are at work, that are naughty, that try to confuse us, that try to pervert us. They may not be as big as asura, but they put wrong thoughts into our head at the wrong time. We may behave stingily, or we may spend more. These are all promptings, and depending on our nature, we get swayed. as early as 1930s, even during Sri Aurobindo's time, there were, quote unquote, some devotees who said, we will raise money for the ashram in Bombay. I remember Bombay because I've read in letters in the 1930s. And they would go raise money in the name of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, and 80% would be used in Bombay itself, and hardly anything would reach Pondicherry. So even at that time, money was directly under Sri Aurobindo's and Mother's very nose. It was usurped by the use of the ego. We see this today, unending need for money. It is said that known or unknown, seen or unseen, probably around 100 people control 95% of wealth in the world. More than 95. There were families in 1500, 1600 period which got into the business of supporting kings in Europe. And because those days wealth was carried from place to place and there were forests and thieves, one of the families came up with a very clever idea. They said, don't worry, I have my relative in the other town or other kingdom where you are going. I will give you on a piece of leather, I will write my little thing and I will put my wax seal. You go and give it to my brother or relative in that town. You don't have to carry these gold coins. He will give you those gold coins there. This was the first quote unquote hawala, or the first unquote monetary system. Those were the forefathers of Rockefellers. And today, the Rockefellers continue to be behind the scenes, one of the wealthiest families controlling the largest amount of wealth. So this is the history of wealth and how it has been controlled significantly by a small percentage of very influential people. Well, there is a whole theory of socioeconomics of wealth. We will not digress into it, but the stamp of the asura is very distinct, is what we were getting at. We will continue this discussion. We have to take up the three forces, power, wealth, and sex, and how Sri Aurobindo describes that these things have a certain distorting influence. We will touch upon these things also in the coming class. We stop here for today, and if there are any questions or comments, we can share.
Thank you, Srinivas. It's an amazing session. Whenever I listen to the content written by Sri Aurobindo, sometimes I feel it is sheer poetry. So the way the sentence starts, it is very poetic in itself, and it has very dense meaning in each word, which you did, like you described what is surrender and what is faith. So each word, normally we are aware about the word, but when you describe it, connected with what Sri Aurobindo and the mother are talking about. And it is so true that to live that life, these are the basic things which is required. And we tend to forget in our, being in this materialistic world. These are very subtly, it's kind of reminders to us when we read it. And the way you elaborated, explain, it is very intensely communicated. Thank you so much. I wish if you have any question, anybody, any participant, please share your question. It will be wonderful. It will bring another perspective also. I don't see any question here. When you talked about Hawala, in Gujarat, there is a poetry Narsi Mehta, he was a saint. Acha, Arunji is saying thank you. Okay. So in Gujarati, it is written hundi, not hawala. So somebody gave hundi and he said, Mari hundi swikaro Maharaj, Shamada Girdari. Means, just, he has written in something because of the wedding of the daughter and accept. So money has many, many way it can be interpreted. But that's a beautiful way of explaining money. And it is energy force. That's so beautiful. Yeah.
Narsi Mehta ji is one of the greatest devotees that we keep hearing about. Very inspiring stories from his life.
Very inspiring. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Looking forward.